and welcome back to another video in our Hellboy Book to Movie Adaptation Series. Today we are bringing you a spoiler-free book review, comic arc review. Unclear of how we're going to title this, but we are talking today about the 3 comic book arc that the new movie is going to be based off of. So
I am very interested to see how they do this, as we don't spoil anything about these. This is kind of like Hellboy's big arc that we went through and read.
So, the Hellboy comics, there are 12 volumes. The specific arc that we are talking about today is volume 8, 9, and 12. That is what the creators of the new movie have said that it is going to be based off of, based on initial trailer watches. That seems to be accurate. So, we've gone through it and are here to share our thoughts.
So this is a spoiler-free review. We won't reveal any of the plot, but we will talk about it a little bit. So this is a pretty big arc, and there's a lot of like little side plots going on in these novels as well. And we mentioned our reading vlog, which hopefully you haven't watched that and spoiled yourself on all these. If you've already read them, you can go check that out. Those are spoiler thoughts. But there's a lot that happens in this book that makes you kind of have to just like, you are a passenger when you're reading these comics.
You are there for the ride.
And there are a lot of things that happen that you don't understand, and some that you do understand, but a lot of it kind of expects you just to take by like osmosis, by just being in the story, just kind of absorbing, oh, I don't know who that is or why they're important, but I get what they did.
I personally had a little bit of trouble getting into these comics, I think, because they're very different from the comic books I am familiar with. Steven has much more of a comic history than I do, and so it took me a little bit to get used to the fact that they're throwing a ton of things at you constantly that they're not explaining. They're referencing tons of different historical or mythical creatures, people, etc. that I'm like, who that? Do I need to go like read up a whole Wikipedia page about them and then come back? I don't know. And then the art style was something I definitely had to get used to, and the action sequences were something I had a little trouble with at first, where I couldn't tell what was going on based on the way that the art style was done. That does not mean the art style was bad. I actually quite enjoyed it once I got used to it. It just took me a minute to get pulled in.
I definitely will say that Volume 8, the first part of this story, has about half of the book committed to a whole different storyline, and it just starts laying the seeds for what will be this big arc. And I definitely felt like in Volume 9, when we really dove headfirst into this arc, and that was our only plotline we were following, the story became a lot easier and a lot quicker paced, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, I'm here for it. Whereas Volume 8, I was like, oh, it was okay, you know. I wouldn't say it was the best introduction to the series and to the character.
But it is a Volume 8, not a Volume 1, so that is something to keep in mind when you're going into this, if you are only interested in reading this specific arc and not the full whole run of the comics.
Now, it is only 12 volumes. I will say that throughout this comic, when they are referencing things that happened in previous comics, they always put a little asterisk being like, oh, this happened in Volume 1, Seed of Destruction.
I do like that.
And so it lets you know if you did miss something where you can go to read more about that. And then sometimes they mention things that seem like there should be a reference, but when there's not, because they don't tell you, there's no like...
I actually noticed that happened quite a bit in Volume 12 in particular. Volume 8 and 9, they were much better at identifying those, so that was odd. I definitely think for me personally, Volume 9 is my favorite out of the 3 of these. However, Volume 12 is very, very good. But Volume 9 is still my favorite.
And I do appreciate that this story is unafraid to have some big things happen throughout this story and do some fun things with characters. I often critique on this channel stories not willing to go far enough with their characters or utilize their characters in specific ways. And I definitely think that Mike Mignola has no qualms, doing whatever he wants with these characters for what he feels is right for the story.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the art style as well. I mentioned it a little bit when in reference to the action scenes, but something I really enjoyed about this series, particularly Volume 12 and the finale of Volume 12, was the use of color. This comic, I'm assuming all 12 volumes are like this, but as we are only familiar with these 3, they have a very specific color palette. You have blacks, grays, reds, oranges, and yellows, and that's it. Maybe some blues, but it's more of a blue-gray, but you only have these extreme warm tones, and they're not subtle. They're not like blend into each other. It's a very harsh color palette, and I didn't super love that at first because these colors are not my vibe. Give me purples and blues all day long, but like reds and oranges, I'm like, But I really enjoyed how they used color in this series, and the last volume with the finale, the use of color to evoke emotion and to convey the vibe without having to put words on screen was done beautifully. As this is a video surrounding a book to movie adaptation series, we would like to discuss our thoughts and theories about how this will fit into the movies. We can definitely see how it fit into the previous films that were already made, Hellboy and Hellboy 2 by Guillermo del Toro. I can definitely see the influences from here. Even this Darkness Calls Volume 8 that we have has a little sticker on it saying now a major motion picture, Hellboy 2 The Golden Army. So there are definitely some things drawn from this arc that were made for those two films, even though this new film has a very different plot from those two films, it looks like, with some crossover. But I can definitely see, based on trailers, how this will start to influence the new movie. But I definitely think they're going to change some things up.
I'm excited for in this series to rewatch Guillermo's Hellboys, because I can definitely already, remember things from those two movies where I'm like, oh, those were like pulled directly from the comic books. And also how much he went off book with some things, because his plots like go way off the beaten path. And I think they were working their way around if they had ever made a third one.
Especially based off of Hellboy 2, I would agree. Yeah,
rolling into this arc, I think, for the final film, which is interesting why they're choosing to do that with the first film. And I'm interested to see if they're just trying to make one standalone film or if they're trying to turn this into like a franchise. I don't know.
We'll see.
But if they follow this accurately, I will be surprised to see them make more of them.
Thus far, we've been unimpressed with the trailers and the tone they are implying and just the general vibe. But it's a trailer. May not be accurately reflecting the actual movie, so we're kind of trying to hold our judgments a little bit as much as we can. But I'm still excited for it. I'm still excited for this entire series. I think this is a fun... this is the first time we've done a comic to movie adaptation, so this is new for us. I'm really enjoying it so far. I really liked getting to dive into Hellboy's background a lot more because my previous experience was only Hellboy 1 and Hellboy 2. So I'm intrigued and interested.
Yeah, I feel like the new thing on our channel for this year is whenever something's coming out, we want to go back to the source material and get to experience it that way before we see a new rendition on screen, because I feel like it just makes that experience so much more powerful, especially when they adapt it properly.
Well, and we are not the type of people who expect a one-to-one adaptation for things. I think between all of the adaptations that have come out over the past several years and the fact that we have dove more into books, etc. I never expect adaptations to be one-for-ones. I expect them to take the heart of the source material, which I believe Hellboy 1 and Hellboy 2 do, from my memory. I don't know if the new one will. We'll see.
I will say that I definitely think the new film with the R rating will do a lot for this character, because it's definitely an R-rated world. One panel everything's fine, the next someone has a giant sword through their chest, and so I think that will be exciting to see that kind of action on screen, and to see Hellboy fighting demons I think will be legit. Well, that is our spoiler-free review. If you want to know our spoiler thoughts, you can go back and check out our reading vlog, first part of this series, and stay tuned for our following videos where we're going to review Guillermo's both Hellboy movies, and then we're going to review the new film when it comes out as well. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of those videos. And comment down below if you've read these, if you liked them, if you hated them, or if there's other volumes in this series that we should read, because we haven't read any others yet, but we want to.
Yeah, and please keep the comment section of this video spoiler-free, if you don't mind. If you want to discuss spoilers, please go over to our reading vlog. We will be happy to discuss it with you there, but we would like to keep this comment section spoiler-free.
So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on our next video.